back to this i24 News Evening Edition. This is One-on-One. Jerusalem is the city where the three monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, intersect. But for some, the city's holiness causes psychological distress, Jerusalem syndrome to be exact. What is this syndrome that afflicts dozens of tourists every year? Here to discuss with me today is Dr. Moshe Kalian, the District Psychologist of Jerusalem. He has been studying Jerusalem syndrome for decades and is a co-author of the book in Hebrew, Jerusalem of Holiness and Madness. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming to our studio.
You're welcome.
So what it is about Jerusalem that makes everybody so crazy?
Well, this is what my colleague and I tried to find out. In fact, it doesn't make everybody or anyone crazy, but what we found out, first of all, Jerusalem syndrome is not a
disease.
A disease. It's not a medical entity. It's more, we could call it a phenomenon which is seen in Jerusalem. And in our studies and our research, we found out that the people who present or act or demonstrate Jerusalem syndrome are people with previous mental problems before they came to Jerusalem. In fact,
what is it exactly, the Jerusalem syndrome?
Well, they could be schizophrenic patients or people with what we call a manic depressive disease that had some idea which germinated in their mind that they should go to Jerusalem and show the mission or show their role to all the people around, that they were chosen to do something because they sometimes hear voices or have these ideas that they have a special mission given to them by God to be either biblical figures or messiahs or people that prophets that give prophecy to people. And we found out that this phenomenon, we can trace it, we can find people that were inflicted by this phenomenon since pilgrimage started to Jerusalem. I mean, since the Middle Ages and perhaps before the Middle Ages, but the first recorded ones are from the Middle Ages.
So these people, when you're sitting with them and you're speaking with them, what are they telling you? They really, truly believe that they came for
a
mission in Jerusalem to save Jerusalem, or like
to save humanity,
to save humanity,
the whole world.
Like
yes.
Jesus Christ or Muhammad, or
exactly. Some of them believe that they are the new Jesus, or they represent the second coming of Jesus, or there was once a woman who thought that she's going to give birth to the new baby Jesus, and that's why she came to Jerusalem. And they are all, as I said, when we try to learn about their past history, they all have a history of some kind of a mental disease before they came to Jerusalem.
So it's not something that you can actually believe them that it really exists, that really what they think is true.
Well, in their reality, it's true. It is true. It's true. And you know, sometimes when those who are being brought to my attention, by the way, I'm not a district psychologist, I'm the district psychiatrist, which is a great difference in Israel.
Yes, definitely.
A district psychiatrist is authorized to hospitalize people against their will. And this is usually the case with this kind of tourists. When they endanger themselves or endanger others, then the authorities have to approach me or to call me and ask for my permission to hospitalize them. And that's how I came to know these people. So, what was the question?
So I'm saying that these people, like you said, think that they're living actually in reality.
Reality, or according to their hallucinations or their thoughts, they came to Jerusalem with a certain mission. As
And
I
it
said,
happens only in Jerusalem, or it happens also in other places?
well, there are other syndromes, or called like syndromes, in other major cities around the world, or either well-known places like what we call Stendhal syndrome in Florence, but it has a different character. Like in Stendhal syndrome, there are tourists who have attacks of anxiety and panics when they face these huge or great Renaissance works of art for some reason. And Stendhal described this syndrome, which he experienced himself, described it in his book. So that's why it is called Stendhal syndrome. There is a Paris syndrome, by the way.
There is a Paris syndrome.
Yes, which you can
being
find
scared of the Eiffel?
in Japanese tourists, because
Japanese tourists who are experiencing...
Japanese tourists who have some kind of a mental breakdown in Paris because they have certain expectations from Paris, and when they come to Paris, and I don't know if it's still now, but they contact the Parisian people who sometimes resent tourists. They break down.
So they break down because what? It wasn't what they expected?
Yes, it wasn't what they expected. They have this kind of a culture shock. They're sometimes the Japanese, very timid, very, gentle people, and they think that they're coming to some great cultural city and all the people will be like them, and they find something else different, something different at all from what they expected when they came from Japan, and they break down for some reason. There's also a kind of a syndrome which is called the White House syndrome.
The White House syndrome?
White House syndrome.
You mean by the United States?
Yes, in the United States. People who come to Washington to advise the president how to run the world.
Okay,
I mean,
it's amazing.
they still believe that America runs the world. And there is also another syndrome which we can find in Venice, which is called death in Venice. People who come to commit suicide in Venice,
So,
jumping from the bridges.
Let's
Yes.
talk about percentage from the...
Well, the percentage is not high. What really attracts about the syndrome is its theatrical elements or theatrical characteristics, because those tourists who come to Jerusalem and act like biblical figures, they see Jerusalem as a stage or a theater stage, and they behave in a very eccentric and a very theatrical way to attract other people, to attract people to listen to them and hear the message. By the way, they very much like and enjoy being interviewed by foreign TV and nets.
Okay.
Telling their mission
So
to the
they're
whole
like
world.
actors who didn't get
Yes,
the
but-
chance to be on stage.
They're not actors because they don't act. They act themselves. They truly believe that this is what they are at that specific moment. And after they're being hospitalized, or while being hospitalized, usually they have the same kind of rationalization. Like you can hear them saying, well, God is testing me, or maybe God is telling me that my time hasn't come yet, and that's why I'm here.
It happens only to tourists or also to people who are living in Jerusalem? Because when you're living this Jerusalem mess, when you're living in the holy city, and you're seeing every hectic life that you're experiencing every day, it seems that you can go
Well-
crazy only by living there.
Oh, well, somebody told me that people who live in Jerusalem look strange. I don't know. I live among them, so I feel okay.
They look more calm. I can tell you that when I lived in Jerusalem, it seems it always put me into, I got into stress when I got to Tel Aviv, because there is something in Jerusalem that's very calm when you're getting into the town and you're feeling that, okay, now I can take my time and do everything. And when you're getting to Tel Aviv, everything, you have to do it very fast. You have to actually run after the hour and run after the time.
Yes.
So is it...
In fact, I'm a Jerusalemite, and I know from my friends that when they come to Tel Aviv, they feel like tourists in Tel Aviv.
Exactly.
Like, as if they came to Manhattan or something like this. But I don't think it inflicts the people of Jerusalem. But there are people who live in Jerusalem. By the way, tourists or foreigners that live in Jerusalem, as far as I know, in the area of East Jerusalem or the old city, people came from abroad, and they just live there quietly with their modest means, and they're waiting for the day that God will call them for their mission.
So this is basically what they're. It's how does it something? Is it something that it develops when you are young? Is it something that comes with the time? Is it?
It can come in any age, and in a certain way, it is connected to the personal history of the person who comes. Like the woman that I told you about that came to Jerusalem to give birth to baby Jesus. She had several miscarriages in her own country, and then somehow it approached her mind that God chose her to give birth to the new baby Jesus, and she should go to Jerusalem and give birth there. And when she thought that she was pregnant, she came to Jerusalem. And by the way, she was brought to my attention because she stayed in a hotel and she felt some aches in her stomach, so she was afraid that she was going to have another miscarriage, and she went to an emergency room, and the doctor that checked her told her, well, we have good news and we have bad news, as we say in Hebrew. The good news is that you're not having a miscarriage. The bad news, perhaps, that you're not pregnant at all.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
So
then
she
got very excited, and she couldn't believe them. She didn't want to leave the place. And then was the stage when she was brought to my attention, and we had to hospitalize her and treat her for a while. It turned out that she was a manic depressive patient, and she came during a manic episode to Jerusalem with her thoughts that she would give birth to baby Jesus.
What is the most shocking fact that you discovered during writing your book?
Well, I don't know if it's a shocking fantasy, but there was a case of an Australian tourist that almost caused, as we say, World War III. That was in 1969. An Australian tourist tried to set fire in Al-Aqsa Mosque. He wanted to burn down Al-Aqsa Mosque, and he thought that if he would burn down Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Jews would build their temple there, and then will start the events of the end of times, and this will bring peace to the world. And he almost caused a war between Israel and the Arab countries, or maybe the whole Muslim world around. In fact, it was the only case in which, although he was a mental patient, the trial was open, and his psychiatrist was brought from Australia to testify, and a British specialist was brought to from London to check him, so that everybody will see that this was not a conspiracy, a Jewish conspiracy, but a mental patient from Australia.
What there is about religion that makes people go mad?
Well,
like we're seeing right now with what is happening with the Temple Mount.
Yes, I don't think it's religion. I think it's the extremity of people. I mean, being a person with extreme ideas drives you mentally to places where you can act mad, and that relates to any kind of extremity, because you can find some religious people who are very moderate, and perhaps even religion keeps them. But the extremely religious well, I better not comment about that.
Maybe we both better not comment about that. Dr. Moshe Kalian, thank you for a very, very interesting talk. Let's hope that none of us will think that he's Jesus Christ or Prophet Muhammad or Prophet Moses. Thank you very much for this talk, and very good. Until the book will get out in English, our viewers who read Hebrew, you're welcome to buy the book and read it. Thank you very much, and thank you, our viewers, for being with us tonight. We will be back on a Sunday with a new edition of the Evening Edition. Till then, till Sunday, have a great night from the Jaffa Port.